Have you ever visited an elderly person's home and been surprised by how unusually clean everything is? Like Mrs. Evelyn's house in Seattle, Washington, the floors sparkle, the furniture is neatly arranged, exuding a warmth that makes you just want to stay. Over time, learning from incredible seniors across America, I've discovered what makes these homes special. It's not thanks to elaborate cleaning methods or luxurious tools, but 16 simple, long-lasting habits they maintain every day. These tasks keep their homes fresh and tidy without exhausting them, while preserving their independence. In this video, I'll reveal 16 habits from these inspiring homemakers. Before diving into the story, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the latest stories. After mentioning the 4 basic habits that create the cleanest homes, let's start with my favorite tidying up before bed. Mrs. Evelyn in Seattle, whom I mentioned earlier, is the perfect example. Every night before going to bed, she spends a brief 15 minutes refreshing her small home. It's not deep cleaning, just simple tasks: wiping the kitchen counter still smelling of coffee, folding the thin blanket on the chair, taking the water glass to the sink. I once asked her, why not leave it for the morning? She laughed, her eyes twinkling. Waking up to a tidy house feels like a burst of energy. What's worse than making coffee next to last night's pile of dishes? This habit began when she taught at an elementary school. After long days in the classroom, she always tidied her desk before leaving, a way to end the day completely. Now in her wooden house in Seattle, where rain often taps on the roof, she sticks to that principle. At night, she turns on a warm yellow lamp, gently wipes the kitchen counter with a cloth, and straightens a few books on the shelf. I set a timer for 15 minutes, she said, just enough to do it without getting tired. She also loves lighting a small candle, the scent of pine wafting through, like bringing the forest indoors. I once visited her on a damp winter evening. As she tidied, I sat watching her hands move slowly but steadily, the sound of rain outside blending with her humming an old song. When she finished, she looked around and smiled. Now I can sleep well. The next morning, I understood why this habit matters. Faint sunlight streamed through the curtains. The bright kitchen welcomed us. No clutter disturbed the mind, just a peaceful space to start the day. Evelyn said, a tidy house in the morning keeps it tidy all day. It's like a promise to myself. This small habit not only keeps the house clean, but also brings mental joy, something old age truly needs. Next is another smart habit: cleaning as you go. Shush. Mr. Henry in New Orleans, Louisiana, impressed me with how he applies this. He was a chef in a bustling restaurant for 40 years, where everything had to be spotless instantly to serve customers. Shush. Now retired, he brings that habit to his small home, near the French Quarter. I met him on a hot, humid afternoon, as he cooked gumbo, the spicy scent of bell peppers and shrimp rising from the kitchen. What's fascinating is, despite being busy chopping vegetables, he never let a mess linger. When he spilled a bit of sauce, he immediately grabbed a cloth to wipe the counter clean. Leave it too long, it dries and gets twice as hard, he said firmly. In the restaurant, he learned that cleaning as you go saves time and effort. Back in the day, if I left the kitchen messy, I'd scrub for an hour after a shift, he recalled, stirring the pot with a wooden spoon. Now at home, he does the same. After chopping onions, he sweeps the scraps into the trash. Once done with the cutting board, he rinses it under warm water. As the gumbo simmered, he wiped the stovetop still slick with oil, all in mere seconds. It looks trivial, but it keeps everything under control, he chuckled, pointing to the gleaming kitchen without a speck of dirt. I sat watching him work, amazed. His house isn't huge, but it always looks freshly cleaned. He said, in New Orleans, it's humid year-round. If you don't clean right away, mold comes fast. Doing it now saves my back a lot. Once he invited me to try his finished gumbo. The steaming bowl sat on a pristine kitchen table, no trace of the cooking process left. The trick is not letting small things turn big, he winked. This habit not only keeps the house clean, but reflects discipline and joy in work. From the restaurant to his little kitchen. For Henry, cleaning as you go is a way of life, not just a housekeeping tip. After seeing how Mrs. Evelyn and Mr. Henry keep their homes clean with small daily tasks, I want to introduce the third habit: continuously decluttering. Mrs. Clara, in Denver, Colorado, showed me the power of this. At 72, She lives in a small house on the dry high plains, where the air is fresh but dust gathers easily. Clara has a simple rule: don't let unnecessary stuff pile up. I don't wait for spring to clean, she said, as she led me into her tidy living room. Every day, I get rid of a little. This habit started when she retired after 30 years as a librarian. Once she bought a green sweater at a discount store, but realized her closet was full. Instead of cramming it in, she pulled out an old, rarely worn sweater and put it in a donation box she keeps in the corner. I call it my one-in, one-out game, she laughed, holding a steaming cup of ginger tea. When I visited, she just dusted the bookshelf and found some old magazines from last year. Without hesitation, she took them straight to the recycling bin. If I don't use it, why keep it? She asked, her voice gentle but firm. Curious, I asked, why not save it for a big cleaning day? Clara sat down, gazing out the window at the faint Rocky Mountains. Years ago, I had to clean out my mom's house after she passed. Stuff everywhere. It took months. I don't want my kids to go through that. Every day she checks a small spot. 2 identical ladles in the kitchen. She keeps the better one. A drawer full of dried-out pens. She tosses them. Her house never feels overloaded. And she said, I like seeing things I actually use. It feels lighter. In Denver, where living space is precious, this habit keeps Clara's home airy, a gift to herself and her family. The 4th habit is a trick that changed how I view cleaning: prioritizing high-use areas. Mrs. Ruth in Tampa, Florida, taught me this. At 80, she lives in a small house near the bay, where the South's humid heat can make everything messy fast. I met her on a scorching morning, as she wiped the kitchen table with a damp cloth. I don't clean the whole house, she said, pointing to key spots: the kitchen, living room, bathroom. If these are clean, the whole house looks fine. Ruth calls this her golden triangle. The areas she uses daily. Who cares about the spare living room anyway? She chuckled, her voice full of energy. I watched her work after breakfast. She washed the dishes right away, wiped the table still sticky with orange jam, then swept the main walkway. The guest bedroom or old storage corner? She barely bothers. I used to try cleaning everything, she said, but it was exhausting and not worth it. Now I focus where I really live. In Tampa, where humidity makes dust cling, this keeps her home pleasant without wearing her out. I sat on her living room sofa, noticing everything neat, pillows aligned, coffee table spotless. But in a far corner, I saw some dusty old boxes. No one notices, she winked. Guests only see the kitchen and seating area. This habit came from her days as an accountant, when she learned to prioritize what mattered. Now retired, she applies it to her home. I'd rather save energy for fun stuff, like reading or tending plants, she said, pointing to a small cactus on the sill. Once I saw her quickly wipe the sink after brushing her teeth. Just 30 seconds. Small but effective, she said. For Ruth, keeping the golden triangle clean is enough to make her home inviting, while leaving her time to enjoy life. This habit isn't just practical. It shows wisdom, letting go of what doesn't matter to nurture what does. After exploring how Mrs. Clara keeps her home light, and Mrs. Ruth focuses on key areas, I want to tell you about the 5th habit: creating a morning routine. Mrs. Lillian in Portland, Oregon, inspires me with how she starts her day. At 76, she lives in a small house near the forest, where morning fog often cloaks the windows. Each day, as the sun peeks out, she does 3 simple things: makes the bed, opens the curtains, and tidies the kitchen while brewing coffee. It's like a gentle dance, she said, her thin hands smoothing the blanket. Lillian was a mail carrier, used to early mornings delivering letters in Oregon's chill. This morning habit kept her mind sharp back then. I don't like a day starting in chaos, she said, offering me a hot cup of coffee. I watched her. The bed was made in 2 minutes. Curtains pulled back to let light flood in. Then she cleared last night's dishes from the sink, all while the radio played the morning news. Birdsong outside mixed with the sound of running water, creating a peaceful vibe. When things are tidy, the day feels longer, she smiled. One morning, I arrived early and saw her just finishing. The living room glowed, the kitchen sparkled, coffee scented the air. If I leave it till noon, I get lazy, she admitted. In Portland, where gloomy winters drag on, natural light from open curtains keeps her home fresh. I do these little things before the coffee's ready. No effort, and the day feels easy, she said. This habit doesn't just keep her house clean. It's a personal ritual that starts Lillian's day with positivity. For her, it's a way to treat herself each morning, a neat space to enjoy life. The sixth habit is a trick that keeps a home organized without much effort, using smart storage.
Sister,
Thomas in Phoenix, Arizona, amazes me with how he manages everything. At 79, he lives in a small apartment after moving from a big house 5 years ago. Phoenix is scorching hot, but his place stays cool and neat, thanks to clear plastic bins stacked on shelves. Everything needs a place, he said, pointing to a corner where items are arranged like a picture. Thomas was a mechanical engineer, used to keeping tools orderly in his workshop. When he moved, he decided to bring that into daily life. I hate rummaging for stuff, he said, opening a bin with cables and batteries, all visible through the clear plastic. I noticed a small basket by his reading chair for glasses and books, a hook by the door for keys, and a spice box in the kitchen he could spot instantly. I even use old shoe boxes, he grinned. Cheap, light, easy to stack. Once I visited as he tidied his closet. He pulled out a small box of old ties, picked the best one, and bagged the rest for charity. If I can see it, I can grab it, he said proudly. In Phoenix, where desert dust sneaks indoors, this storage keeps things clean and manageable. I used to have mystery boxes full of junk, he recalled. Not anymore. He says it saves time. No need to turn the house upside down to find anything. I sat on his sofa looking around, not a single item out of place. He explained, at my age, strength fades. I need stuff easy to reach. Clear bins are light. I can still handle them. For Thomas, smart storage isn't just about a tidy home. It's how he stays independent. An organized house is a livable house, he said, sipping cold lemonade. This simple, effective habit makes home organization easy, even enjoyable. After seeing Mrs. Lillian start her day neatly, and Mr. Thomas keep his home orderly, with smart storage, I want to share the seventh habit, breaking tasks into smaller pieces. Mrs. Dorothy in Salt Lake City, Utah, showed me you don't need to clean the whole house at once to keep it spotless. At 77, she lives in a red brick house amid the dry, cold mountains, where the quiet can let chores pile up if unchecked. I don't do it all in one day, she said, leading me into her living room with a cozy fireplace. Just a little each day. Dorothy was a bank worker, used to splitting tasks to avoid stress. Now retired, she applies that to her home. Monday I dust the living room. Tuesday I clean the bathroom. Wednesday I vacuum the hallway, she listed, holding a mug of hot cocoa. I watched her one afternoon. She grabbed a small broom to sweep dust off the bookshelf, taking just 15 minutes. I used to try cleaning everything on Saturday, she said, but I'd be wiped out with a sore back all day after. Now she takes it easy, often watching her favorite TV show while working. That day, it was a game show full of lively laughter. I visited on a Tuesday, catching her wiping the bathroom sink. She used a damp cloth, moving slowly but efficiently, then sat down with a satisfied smile. My house is always guest ready, she said, pointing to the spotless floor. In Salt Lake City, where long winters keep her indoors, this habit stops chores from feeling suffocating. I love finishing little tasks, she confided. It's easier on my joints, and the house stays clean. For Dorothy, breaking tasks down isn't just practical, it's a way to stay healthy and happy. One small step a day, and the house naturally stays tidy. The eighth habit is a simple but super effective idea, keeping cleaning tools close to where you use them. Mr. George in Raleigh, North Carolina, blew me away with how he makes cleaning as easy as flipping a switch. At 81, he lives in a 2-story house in the humid red dirt region, where lush trees let dust sneak inside. I don't want to run around looking for cleaning stuff, he said, pointing to a small caddy on the kitchen table holding paper towels, all-purpose spray, and a hand broom. George was a truck driver, Used to keeping his cab neat for efficiency, now he brings that rule home. Each floor has its own cleaning kit, he said, as he led me upstairs. In the living room, he keeps a dust cloth in the coffee table drawer. The bathroom has glass cleaner by the sink. The kitchen has a small broom hanging near the trash. I saw him in action. After brewing tea, he grabbed a cloth from the caddy to wipe a few drops off the counter, under 20 seconds. If I had to fetch it, I'd slack off. He laughed, his deep voice warm. One afternoon, I arrived as he finished wiping the bathroom mirror. He sprayed cleaned off water spots and tucked the bottle right back beside it. See dirt, deal with it, he said. No excuses to put it off. In Raleigh, where humidity fogs mirrors and oils up kitchens, this habit lets him tackle things fast. I used to keep everything in the basement, he recalled. Up and down wore me out, so I'd quit. Now it's all within reach. And he said, it's like having a helper. I sat in his kitchen, smelling the fresh toast he'd made, eyeing the spotless counter. I want a clean house without overthinking it, he shared. For George, keeping cleaning tools nearby isn't just convenient. It's a way to stay tidy effortlessly, a small trick that turns cleaning into second nature. After seeing Mrs. Dorothy split up her chores, and Mr. George keep cleaning tools handy, I want to introduce the 9th habit, bringing nature indoors. Mrs. Beatrice in Savannah, Georgia, showed me how nature doesn't just beautify, but also helps keep a home cleaner. At 74, she lives in a low wooden house amid swampy land, where the humid air carries the scent of magnolias. Every morning she flings the windows wide for 10 minutes to let cool breezes in, and on her kitchen sill, she grows small pots of mint. My house feels alive with these, she said, holding a tiny watering can. Beatrice was a seamstress, cooped up in a stuffy workshop, so in retirement, she craved a fresh home. Clean air is a natural cleaner, she said as she led me to the living room, where a lush peace lily sat by the coffee table. I watched her as she watered the mint. She casually wiped the sill of stray soil, a gentle, effective move. Seeing pretty plants makes me want their surroundings clean too. She smiled, pinching a mint leaf for my tea. The cool scent filled the room, making it feel brighter. One morning, I arrived as she opened the windows. The breeze swept away the musty smell common in Savannah. She said, opening up and growing plants doesn't just air things out. It nudges me to tend to it. In this low country, where humidity breeds mold, her habit keeps the space dry without gadgets. I don't like chemicals, she said, plants do it for me. For Beatrice, bringing nature in isn't just a hobby. It naturally encourages her to clean, turning her home into a cozy, welcoming spot. Sipping mint tea, I felt the warmth this habit brings. The 10th habit is something deeper. Understanding why you clean. Mr. Walter in Boise, Idaho, made me see that a clean home isn't just about looks. It's about what's inside. At 82, he lives alone in a small house on vast prairies, where cold winds blow through long winter days. His home is always neat. The kitchen table spotless. Family photos on the shelf gleaming. I don't clean to show off, he said, his voice low and sad, but to hold on to what I treasure. Walter was a history teacher, living with his wife for 50 years until she passed 6 years ago. She loved a clean house, he said, wiping a thin layer of dust off an old photo frame with a soft cloth. I listened as he slowly rearranged books on the shelf, each move like a ritual. Keeping it how she liked it makes me feel she's still here, he said, his eyes gazing out the window where snow began to fall lightly. This habit isn't just cleaning, it's how he stays tied to the past. Once I visited as he finished wiping the dining table. He said, I used to be lazy. She'd nag me. Now I get why she was strict. In Boise, where winter keeps him indoors, a clean house brings him peace. It's not a chore, he said. It's freedom. I control my space. I looked around. His home wasn't fancy, but every corner felt warm, cared for with emotion. Some days I'm tired, but I still wipe this table, he pointed, because it makes me happy. For Walter, understanding why he cleans turns it into something meaningful. I don't want my kids worrying about me, he added. A clean house is how I stay strong. Sitting by the crackling fireplace, I felt it, This habit doesn't just keep his home tidy, it's how he honors his life. And his late wife. A drive deeper than any cleaning tip. After hearing how Mrs. Beatrice brings nature indoors, and Mr. Walter finds meaning in cleaning, I want to tell you about the 11th habit: seasonal deep cleaning. Mrs. Edith in Ann Arbor, Michigan, showed me that you don't always need to clean daily to keep a home fresh. At 79, she lives in a small brick house amid a cold lake region, where snowy winters and vibrant springs shift the rhythm of life. I don't deep clean every week, she said, leading me into the living room with freshly washed curtains. Once a season is enough. Edith grew up in a farming family, accustomed to working with the weather's rhythm. My mom taught me to wash windows in spring, wipe rugs in fall, she said, pointing to the sparkling glass, catching early sunlight. I watched her on a spring day. She opened all the doors, grabbed a bucket of warm water, and washed each pane. It took a whole morning, but she broke it down. One room a week. I don't rush, she smiled. Slow and steady. Each season its task. The previous fall, she vacuumed under the bed and washed curtains. Big jobs that don't need doing often. I visited her late in winter, after she'd checked the fireplace and dusted long neglected shelves. Seasonal deep cleaning keeps my house lasting, she said, pointing to the scratch-free wooden floor. In Ann Arbor, where harsh weather can wear a house down, this habit prevents big chores from piling up. I do a little each week in the season, she said. Not too taxing, and the house stays fresh. She loves playing classical music while cleaning. That day it was gentle violin, turning chores into a relaxing ritual. For Edith, seasonal deep cleaning isn't just effective. It's her way of blending into nature's pace, keeping her home clean, without exhaustion. The 12th habit is a smart way to organize, dividing activity zones. Mrs. Helen in Santa Fe, New Mexico, impressed me with how she keeps her home tidy, by giving each activity its own space. At 75, she lives in an adobe house, amid the arid desert, where blazing sunlight hits red walls. Everything in my house has its place, she said, leading me to a cozy knitting corner, with an armchair and a basket of needles. Helen was once a painter, used to arranging paints and brushes for efficiency. Now retired, she applies that to her home. This corner's for knitting, that table's for puzzles, she pointed, her voice proud. I saw the living room had a reading chair with a bright lamp, a basket of books beside it. The kitchen had a small table for letter writing, with a neat pen box. When I'm done, I put everything back, she said, holding a finished knitting frame and placing it in the basket. In Santa Fe, where desert dust drifts in, this keeps things from mixing up. One afternoon, I arrived as she finished a 500-piece puzzle on a table by the window. She packed the pieces into a box, wiped the table clean, then moved to knit in her corner. Without dividing it up, my house would be a battlefield. She laughed loudly. I sat down, looking around, not a single item out of place, though she does so much daily. I like knowing where things are, she said. No wasting time searching. This habit started when she raised young kids, needing order amid chaos. In this dry region, Helen makes the most of small spaces, a hook on the wall for needle boxes, books neatly stacked on a low shelf. I want a comfy home without clutter, she said. For Helen, dividing activity zones doesn't just keep her house clean, it lets her enjoy hobbies without mess. Watching her knit under the sunset glow, I saw this habit like a painting, each corner of her home, a harmonious stroke. After seeing Mrs. Edith deep clean seasonally, and Mrs. Helen keep her home tidy with activity zones, I want to share the 13th habit, turning cleaning into fun. Mrs. Louise in Knoxville, Tennessee, made me realize chores don't have to be a burden. At 73, she lives in a small house amid green hills, where cool air carries the scent of pine. I don't want cleaning to be misery, she said, leading me to the kitchen as she wiped the table with her neighbor Agnes, both laughing heartily. Louise was a nurse, used to long, stressful days, so in retirement, she decided housework should be enjoyable. Every Thursday, Agnes comes over, she said, wiping the counter still stained with coffee. I watched the two wipe down surfaces, while chatting lively about an upcoming fair, then brewed tea to relax. Before you know it, the kitchen's clean, she smiled, pointing to the gleaming floor. In Knoxville, where community ties are strong, This habit turns cleaning into a social event. I play bluegrass music too, she said, working and singing. It's like a party. One morning, I arrived, as they tidied the living room. Louise dusted shelves. Agnes fluffed pillows, their laughter drowning out the broom sweep. Alone, I get bored, she admitted. But with a friend, it's so much lighter. She also shared how she listens to audiobooks on other days. That day, a mystery novel that made her forget fatigue. Cleaning's better when it's fun, she said. For Louise, this habit doesn't just keep her home clean, it's how she enjoys life. Sipping tea with Agnes, I saw housework can be joyful. Just add some creativity and company. The 14th habit is a way to keep a home consistently clean. Setting a weekly deep clean day. Mr. Frank in Omaha, Nebraska, impressed me with how he makes cleaning a fixed routine. At 78, he lives in a small house amid vast cornfields, where wind blows dust through windows year-round. Wednesday's my day, he said, leading me to the living room, as he finished vacuuming under the couch, holding a glass of cold water. Frank was a mail carrier, used to tight schedules, so in retirement, he picked a day for bigger tasks beyond daily tidying. I don't like dust piling up thick, he said, turning on an old music player. That day, Elvis rock and roll. I watched him vacuuming under the sofa, wiping baseboards, checking the fridge, about 2 hours. My kids know not to call before noon, he laughed, his voice full of energy. In Omaha, where cold winters dirty the house, this habit keeps things manageable. Once, I visited on a Wednesday. He just cleaned the windows, sunlight streaming through to brighten the room. I do it after breakfast. When I've got strength, he said, pointing to the broom and rags neatly by the door. He used to clean randomly, but often quit from exhaustion. Now with a set day, I don't forget, he said. He loves cranking the music, bopping to rock while working, more like performing than cleaning. It's routine now. He winked. Clean house, healthy me. For Frank, a weekly deep clean day isn't just effective. It's how he stays disciplined and joyful. I want my house ready anytime, he said, sitting down contentedly. Hearing the music echo, I knew this habit doesn't just keep his home tidy. It's a vital part of his lively life. After hearing Mrs. Louise turn cleaning into fun, and Mr. Frank set a weekly deep clean day, I want to share the 15th habit, keeping a laundry schedule. Mrs. Phyllis in Tulsa, Oklahoma, showed me laundry doesn't have to be a piled-up nightmare. At 76, she lives in a small house on the hot, dusty plains, where dry air dirties clothes fast. I don't let laundry overwhelm me, she said, leading me to her small laundry room, where the washer hummed, a faint detergent scent in the air. Phyllis was a librarian, used to organizing things neatly, and she brings that order to laundry. Monday and Thursday are my days, she said, folding a freshly dried towel. I watched Monday morning. She gathered weekend clothes, splitting them into 2 small loads, each just 20 minutes to wash. After the dryer, she folded them right away, stacking them neatly in the closet. If I wait, it turns into a mountain, she smiled, pointing to an empty basket, not a sock left. In Tulsa, where red dust clings to fabric, this habit keeps her clothes always ready. I visited on a Thursday as she finished washing bed sheets. She folded each corner carefully, the sun-dried scent wafting through. I don't like clean stuff lying messy, she said, placing the towel stack on a shelf. She used to let laundry pile up for a week, then tire out facing the heap. Now I split it, no more stress, she said. She often listens to the radio while folding that day, a cheerful country song, making chores feel like a pastime. For Phyllis, a laundry schedule doesn't just keep her home clean, it's how she controls her life. I always have clean clothes to wear, no worries, she said, sitting down satisfied. The 16th habit is a way to keep a home lasting, seasonal maintenance. Mr. Leonard in Burlington, Vermont, showed me caring for a house goes beyond surface cleaning. At 80, he lives in a wooden house amid red maple forests, where vivid falls and icy winters change the landscape. A house needs tending too, he said, leading me to the porch with a small notebook listing seasonal tasks. Leonard was a plumber, used to maintaining equipment, so in retirement, he applies that to his home. Spring for screens, fall for gutters, he said, holding a screwdriver, after swapping an air filter. I watched one fall day. He climbed a small ladder, clearing golden leaves from the gutters. An hour's work, but he took it slow. Do it early. Avoid big fixes later. He smiled, pointing to the dry, leak-free roof. In Burlington, where heavy snow can damage homes, this habit keeps everything running smoothly. I visited late spring, after he'd checked the AC and replaced smoke alarm batteries. I write it all down, he said, opening a page with clear dates. He once forgot small things, leading to frozen pipes one winter. Not anymore, he said. He loves working outside in nice weather, birdsong mixing with his light tapping to check windows. These tasks keep the house comfy year-round, he said, sitting on the porch with a glass of water. For Leonard, seasonal maintenance isn't just duty, it's joy in seeing his home endure. Sitting overlooking the maple forest from his porch, I felt the reassurance this habit brings. I want to stay here long-term, he confided. A good house keeps me well. This habit doesn't just keep his home clean. It's how he prepares for the future. A little each season. His house always ready for any weather challenge. After exploring 16 habits through amazing seniors like Mrs. Phyllis in Tulsa and Mr. Leonard in Burlington, I noticed something fascinating: how they apply these habits shifts depending on where they live. Each region in America, from Seattle's damp woods to Omaha's cornfields, shapes how they keep their homes clean. Let's look back at the people we've met, seeing how weather, culture, and environment mold their habits. First, recall Mrs. Evelyn in Seattle, Washington, where constant rain and humidity linger year-round. When she tidies before bed, she always wipes the kitchen counter dry to prevent mold, something folks in dry Denver, like Mrs. Clara, rarely worry about. In Seattle, opening windows like Mrs. Beatrice in Savannah isn't always doable due to rain, so Evelyn relies on scented candles to keep her home fresh. In contrast, Beatrice uses Georgia's cool breezes to clear the air, paired with mint plants, perfect for the humid lowlands, where mold is a big foe. Next, Mr. Henry in New Orleans, Louisiana, cleans as he goes with a chef's quick pace. In this hot, humid area, sauce spilled on the counter hardens or attracts ants if not wiped right away, a rarity for Mrs. Clara in arid Denver. Clara focuses on decluttering, as the open highlands make her crave a lighter home. Unlike Henry, who cares less about stuff and more about instant mess control, Mrs. Ruth in Tampa, Florida, prioritizes her golden triangle: kitchen, living room, bathroom, since humid heat makes these spots prone to clutter and odors. Meanwhile, Mrs. Lillian, in Portland, Oregon, starts her day opening curtains to catch rare light amid gloomy winters, something Ruth in sunny Tampa doesn't need. Lillian uses light to brighten her home, while Ruth avoids sun to stay cool, showing how weather shapes their morning habits. Mr. Thomas in Phoenix, Arizona, uses clear bins for storage, as desert dust coats items if not sealed, a problem Mrs. Dorothy in Salt Lake City, Utah, rarely faces with its dry, cold air. Dorothy breaks tasks down to avoid exhaustion during long winters spent indoors, while Thomas in year-round heat works steadily to keep dust at bay. Both organize their homes, but for starkly different reasons and methods. Mr. George in Raleigh, North Carolina, keeps cleaning tools nearby, because high humidity fogs mirrors and oils kitchens fast, demanding instant fixes. In contrast, Miss Edith, in Ann Arbor, Michigan, deep cleans seasonally, since snow and rain gradually wear her house down. She doesn't need a constant caddy like George, focusing on big tasks like foul rug wiping. In her cold region, Edith preps for winter, while George in humid climes reacts daily. Mrs. Helen, in Santa Fe, New Mexico, divides activity zones to keep her home tidy amid dusty deserts, where things get lost without set spots. Mrs. Louise in Knoxville, Tennessee, makes cleaning fun with friends, tapping into the hill country's community culture for light housework, something Helen in sparse lands gets less chance for. Mr. Frank in Omaha, Nebraska, sets a weekly deep clean day to tackle field dust, unlike Mrs. Phyllis in Tulsa, Oklahoma, who sticks to a laundry schedule, since red dust dirties clothes faster. Finally, Mr. Leonard in Burlington, Vermont, maintains seasonally to withstand thick snow, while Mrs. Ruth, in Tampa, Bus Boo in Tampa, doesn't worry about snow, but minds humidity, causing wall mold. Leonard checks gutters in fall. Ruth wipes the kitchen daily. Both care for their homes, but in ways their regions demand. Looking back, I see these 16 habits aren't rigid. In Seattle, Evelyn fights dampness. In Phoenix, Thomas battles dust. In Boise, Walter cleans for memories. Each adjusts to their place, from climate to culture. Yet the goal remains a clean, cozy home. It makes me think, wherever you are, these habits can flex to fit. After comparing how the 16 habits vary by region, I wondered, are these really doable for anyone, even me? I live in Austin, Texas, a city hot and dusty year-round. Not much different from Mrs. Phyllis's Tulsa or Mr. Thomas's Phoenix. My house isn't messy, but it's not as tidy as Mrs. Evelyn's in Seattle either. So I decided to try, not all 16 habits at once, but starting small, as these seniors taught me. This journey didn't just change my home. It changed how I see cleaning. I began with Mrs. Evelyn's habit, tidying up before bed. One Friday night, after a long workday, I looked around, dishes in the sink, papers scattered on the table. Instead of sleeping, I set a 15-minute timer like Evelyn suggested. I washed a few dishes, wiped the kitchen counter, folded the blanket on the sofa, all done before the timer buzzed. The next morning, waking up to a clean kitchen, I was surprised. Brewing coffee without clutter felt truly different. As Evelyn said, a tidy house in the morning keeps it tidy all day. I started doing it every night, and gradually, it became instinct. Then I tried Mr. Henry's habit from New Orleans, cleaning as you go. One night making dinner, spaghetti with tomato sauce, I spilled some sauce on the counter. Instead of leaving it, I wiped it right away with a cloth, like Henry did with gumbo. It took 10 seconds, but I avoided a dried, tough scrub later. In Austin, where dust sticks to oil, this kept my kitchen clean without extra effort. Henry was right, small but effective, finding these two habits easy. I added Mrs. Clara's from Denver, decluttering constantly. I opened my closet, saw 3 old shirts I rarely wore. Remembering Clara's words, I put them in a donation bag. No regrets. The house felt lighter, and I felt what she meant. I like seeing things I really use. Austin isn't as dry as Denver, but the airy feeling was still wonderful. I also learned from Mrs. Ruth in Tampa, prioritizing high-use areas. I focused on the kitchen and living room, where I spend the most time, instead of fussing over the rarely used office. One day, I wiped the dining table and fluffed the sofa pillows, ignoring the dusty bookshelf corner. The house still felt clean. As Ruth said, just keep where you live tidy. In hot, humid Texas, this saved energy, while staying effective. Mrs. Lillian's morning habit from Portland drew me in too. One Sunday morning, I made the bed, opened the curtains, and cleared dishes while brewing tea. Under 10 minutes, Austin sunlight poured in, making the day feel gentler. Lillian was right. When things are tidy, the day feels longer. I started doing it regularly, like a little ritual. Mr. Thomas in Phoenix suggested smart storage, so I bought clear plastic bins for cables and odds and ends. My house isn't dusty like the desert, but now I find things easier. Just as he said, if I can see it, I can grab it. Mrs. Dorothy in Salt Lake City taught me to break tasks down. I vacuumed the living room one day, wiped the kitchen another. No more exhaustion, like before. Mr. George's habit from Raleigh, keeping cleaning tools close, helped too. I left a cloth in the kitchen, spray in the bathroom. Once spotting a foggy mirror, I wiped it instantly. Quick and easy, as he said. See dirt, deal with it. Mrs. Beatrice in Savannah reminded me to bring nature in. I set a small plant on the table, and sure enough, I wanted to wipe around it more. Mr. Walter in Boise made me think deeper about why I clean. I don't have memories like him, but I want a clean house to feel in control. Cleaning became self-care. Mrs. Edith in Ann Arbor and Mr. Walls, Leonard in Burlington, taught me seasonal deep cleaning. I checked the ceiling fan in spring, wiped doors in fall. The house lasts longer, as they said. Mrs. Helen in Santa Fe, Mrs. Louise in Knoxville, Mr. Frank in Omaha, Mrs. Phyllis in Tulsa. Each gave me a lesson. I zoned activities, made cleaning fun with music, set a vacuum day, kept a laundry schedule. But the biggest thing I learned is a clean house isn't about perfection. It's about living comfortably. As Mr. Leonard said, a good house keeps me well. Think back to what we've seen. Mrs. Evelyn teaches that 15 minutes tidying before bed can transform your morning. So fuss. Just wipe the table, fold blankets. All tried it in Austin, and waking up to a neat house truly makes the day lighter. Mr. Wells. Henry in New Orleans reminds us to clean as we go, wipe spills fresh to avoid bigger jobs later. Mrs. Clara in Denver advises decluttering. Just ditch one old shirt, and your house feels airier. Mrs. Ruth in Tampa shows prioritizing high-use areas is enough. A clean kitchen and living room make the house feel tidy. I skipped the dusty office corner, and it was fine. Mrs. Lillian in Portland turns mornings into a routine of making the bed, opening curtains, clearing dishes in 10 minutes. I followed, and days start brighter. Mr. Thomas in Phoenix proves smart storage saves time. Clear bins are now a must-have in my Austin home. Mrs. Dorothy in Salt Lake City breaks tasks down. Do us today, you form. Five dos. Trying to do it all in one day. Mr. George in Raleigh keeps tools nearby. A kitchen cloth lets me tackle spills instantly. Mrs. Beatrice in Savannah brings nature in. A small plant makes me wipe the table more. As she said, a lively house is easy to tend. Mr. Walter in Boise teaches understanding why you clean. Not to show off, but to feel in control. I clean for me, not others. Mrs. Edith in Ann Arbor deep cleans seasonally. I wipe the fan in spring, and the house holds up better. Mrs. Helen in Santa Fe zones areas. My reading nook's tidy now. Mrs. Louise in Knoxville makes cleaning fun. I play music while wiping, and it's true. It's more enjoyable. Mr. Frank in Omaha sets a weekly deep clean day. I pick Saturday to vacuum, keeping the house consistently clean. Mrs. Phyllis in Tulsa sticks to a laundry schedule. I wash twice a week, no more piles. Mr. Leonard in Burlington maintains seasonally. I checked windows in fall, feeling reassured like him. These habits aren't hard, they're flexible, as I saw across regions. In hot, dusty Austin, I wipe tables often like Ruth. At your place, maybe you'll open windows like Beatrice, or check gutters like Leonard. The key is, you don't need to do them all. Pick one that fits, just one, and start. Want to wake up to a tidy house? Try 15 minutes tonight, like Evelyn. Set a timer, wipe the kitchen, fold blankets, then sleep. See how it feels tomorrow. I bet you'll love it. Or try Henry's. Next time you spill water, wipe it. 10 seconds, but you'll notice the difference. If your house is full of stuff, do Clara's pick one unused item, toss it, and feel the lightness. No pricey gadgets or super strength needed. These seniors, with their age and limits, still manage. Dorothy with a sore back still splits tasks. Walter in old age still wipes frames. You can too, right? Think about your reason. Like Walter, do you want a clean house to relax, to host friends, to feel proud of your space? That reason will push you. For me, a clean house in Austin keeps my spirits up amid busy days. For you, it could be anything, but start. One small habit, a week's trial. You'll be amazed how easy it is. Here's what I've learned. A clean house isn't a burden. It's a gift. As Phyllis says, I always have clean clothes to wear. As Leonard says, a good house keeps me well. They don't just keep homes tidy. They live healthy, independent lives. Something we all want, right? So try it. Tonight, tomorrow, whenever. Pick a habit, do it, and feel it. The story of these 16 habits from seniors like Mrs. Evelyn in Seattle, Mr. Henry in New Orleans, or Mrs. Phyllis in Tulsa reflects a truth in America today. Busy lives, diverse regions, but everyone craves a cozy space. In modern society, where work and tech take up so much time, homes can turn into battlefields, as Mrs. Helen in Santa Fe said, without good management. Evelyn's 15 minutes before bed teaches consistency. In fast-paced America, like New York or LA, a little time each night can kick off your day, stress-free, instead of drowning in weekend chores. Henry wiping spills as he cooks shows American practicality, saving time and effort, perfect for busy families in big cities. Clara's constant decluttering hints at the minimalist trend thriving in California or Portland. Less stuff, less pressure, especially with sky-high rent. Leonard's seasonal maintenance in Burlington reminds us that, whether in cold Midwest or hot Texas, regular care avoids hefty repair costs, a real concern as living expenses rise. The biggest lesson is, like Walter in Boise, find your personal reason to clean, maybe health, freedom, or family joy, and start small, like I did in Austin. Wherever you are, these habits flex, making modern American life lighter, one step at a time. Uiteen Bort, one stored mog. Thanks for joining me to learn from these amazing seniors. Hit subscribe to explore more easy tips for a clean home without the hassle in the next video.